Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining me for Take Action Tuesday. My name is Caitlin Bassat, and I'm a youth facilitator with the Invasive Species Council of BC. Today, I'm going to be speaking about 5 different invasive plants that are toxic to horses. And as a horse owner, this topic is, of course, very, very important to myself. So I've got some photos to show you, and I also will have some tips at the end on how you can take action to prevent the spread of these toxic invasive species. So I'm going to share my screen. Okay, so the first invasive species I'm going to talk about is called Hoary alyssum. Now, Hoary alyssum is currently found in the south central and southeastern BC, including the Okanagan, the Caribou, Boundary, Thompson, and the Kootenay areas. I'm based in Kamloops, so I unfortunately see Hoary alyssum all the time. The best way to identify this plant is to look for the white flowers. And if you look at the photo on the right, you'll see that the petals have these deep notches in them. Also, with these flowers, they occur at the end of these slender stalks. And if you look at the photo on the left, you'll see that the plant is quite tall, but sometimes, depending on the soil it's growing on, it will actually grow closer to the ground and look more bushier. And I've seen both types. I've seen this tall variety, and I've seen the shorter one. And it really just all depends on the soil that Hoary alyssum is growing in. Now, the leaves are gray, and they have star-shaped hairs, and they're very, very rough to the touch. So if you happen to walk through a bunch of Hoary alyssum with shorts on, it definitely feels like sandpaper. And of course, like most invasives, typically you're going to find this plant in disturbed soils, so roadsides, embankments. If you've got pasture that's been overgrazed, that of course opens up prime areas for invasives to come in and take hold. With this invasive, it unfortunately produces a lot of seed, and it seeds for an extremely long time. So this plant will start producing seeds in the early summer and continue to seed until the fall, up into the first frost, which is a super long time. It overwinters as a rosette, and it is a perennial. Now, of course, this is unfortunately toxic to horses. If ingested, it can cause fever, limb edema, and laminitis. So the sensitivity will vary when a small or a single dose of Hoary alyssum is ingested. But unfortunately, horses have died from ingesting hay that is 30 to 70% Hoary alyssum. So definitely being mindful of your hay and checking your hay as you feed it to look for any different looking plant parts, then you could seek advice and get it ID'd. Now the next plant, or actually before I go to the next plant, I wanted to show this picture because this is a great example of an invasive species creating a monoculture. So all those white flowers that you see are Hoary alyssum. So this field is no longer usable by horses until this plant is removed. And there's probably a pretty good seed bank in the soil. This is quite a large establishment, so this field will have to be watched and treated for a few years before it's safe for horses to graze on again. I'm not sure if you've seen this plant. I see lots in the Kamloops area, especially when I'm out riding on the trails. It's called Hound's tongue. It gets quite tall. And it's found again in the Kamloops area, but also in most areas of the southern interior of BC. And it's a major concern in the Kootenay, the Okanagan, the Thompson, and the Caribou areas. The mature plants have quite a big taproot, and they've got kind of hairy, wide leaves. Most of us will know it by the annoying seeds that you see in the middle picture. So I know myself, I've had horses get these burrs stuck in their manes and tails. If you've got dogs, these seeds get stuck in the fur. And one thing to really watch for is we often want to get those burrs out of the hair really quickly. So we pick the burr out and then we throw it on the ground, which you're spreading the seeds of hound's tongue and possibly creating new plants. So if you take these seeds off your animals or off your pants or your shoes, please, please, please put them in a plastic bag, and then they can go in the garbage to prevent the seeds from spreading. This plant also has kind of dull reddish purple 5-petaled flowers, and each of these flowers will produce 4 rounded triangular seeds that we just talked about, and they have these hooked prickles, which makes them perfect for sticking onto the manes and tails of horses and also cattle as well. This plant is toxic because it contains alkaloids that cause liver damage in horses, but also in cattle, deer, pigs, and goats. So a lot of these plants aren't just toxic to horses, it kind of is sometimes toxic for all different types of livestock. St. John's wort looks completely different because now we've got yellow flowers. I've never seen this plant in person, but you can mainly find it at low to mid elevation areas of the Kootenays, Okanagan, Boundary, North Thompson, the Caribou, the Skeena, Fraser Valley, and Vancouver Island. The plants can grow up to 1 meter high, and of course the flowers are bright yellow and they have black dots, and these flowers are produced in clusters. These clusters can have anywhere from 25 to 100 flowers, and they're found at the tips of the branches of the plant. The reason that this plant is an issue to horses and also other types of livestock is when it's eaten by light-colored animals, it can actually cause skin irritation and blistering. So darker colored animals are fine, it's just the lighter colored animals that this one affects. Leafy Spurge is another toxic invasive plant to horses. I've seen this lots in the Kamloops area. There's also a couple other different types of spurge. Leafy Spurge is present in, of course, the Thompson, where I'm from, the Caribou, Boundary, East Kootenay, Nechako, and the North Okanagan. And once you learn this plant, you don't usually forget it because it has very distinguishable clusters of yellowish green flowers, and they each have a pair of heart-shaped yellow-green bracts that are below each flower. So it's really easy to remember. A big warning for this one is do not touch it, because this plant can also affect people because it contains a white milky latex in the leaves and the stems, and this substance is known to irritate the skin of people and animals, which you get the skin irritation and then it can actually produce blisters and swelling. So if animals like horses and cattle are eating this, those blisters and swelling can actually occur in the mouth as well. So definitely one to watch for, but don't touch it with bare skin. Be very, very careful with this one. And the last invasive plant I'll talk about today is Tansy Ragwort. So it's very similar to St. John's wort because we have the yellow flowers, but Tansy Ragwort doesn't have the black spots like St. John's wort does. This plant is currently found in the central Fraser Valley, central to southern Vancouver Island, the Gulf Island, and the east side of the Okanagan Valley between Kelowna and Penticton. The flowers are also arranged differently than St. John's wort. So St. John's wort had the flowers in clusters at the end of stems, whereas Tansy Ragwort has dense, flat-topped clusters on the top of each stem. So just a little bit of different shape to how the flowers are gathering. This plant can grow up to 1.2 meters at maturity, and interesting fact is a single plant can produce 150,000 seeds, and those seeds will remain viable in the soil for up to 15 years. So this can be one that is difficult to get rid of once it's established, because the seeds in your soil that create that seed bank will just be there for quite some time. This is an issue for horses because it contains toxic alkaloids that can cause cumulative liver damage. And not only in horses, it will also affect cattle, deer, and pigs. So I talked about a few different toxic invasive plants to watch for. So now I just want to quickly mention how you can take action to keep your livestock safe on your properties. So the main thing is walk your fields, walk your pastures. Get to know the plants that are in your local area. If you see a flower in your field and you don't know what it is, identify it. There's lots of really interesting apps out there that you can use. There's also the Report Invasives app that you can go on. There's lots of photos. You can also report sightings of invasive species on this app as well. For ID features, you can go to our website at bcinvasives.ca, and we've got lots of good tip sheets, photos, and all sorts of information to help you ID invasive plants. Also, get yourself a really good native plant ID book, because there's actually several native plant species that are toxic to horses. One example where my horses boarded, we identified that we had death camas, which are native and great for biodiversity, but you don't want them where your horse is grazing. So next year, we're going to watch for them to pop up, and then we'll have to remove them where the horses are actively grazing. So just check your fields, get to know your area, know the plants that are growing there, and check it all the time. Don't just go out once a year. Like, get to know how everything's growing in your area, and that will definitely help keep your pastures nice and healthy. Also, if you can avoid it, don't overgraze your pastures, because if you do that, you've got bare ground and all of your great native grasses are having a hard chance of growing. That frees up space for invasive plants to come in and establish. Another thing you can do to take action is to practice play, clean, go. So the photo on the right-hand side, that's my boot. And you'll see, if you look on my boot, this round seed, that burr is from a common burdock plant. It is invasive, and those seeds actually inspired the creation of Velcro. So I had to pick that off and put it in a plastic bag. So when you go out and you're recreating, when you're playing, that's great, but just make sure when you're done that you clean off your clothing, your equipment before you leave the area you're recreating from. You want to remove any plant parts, any insects, any dirt, so you're not transporting anything that could be invasive to a new site. Now, many of us that have property, we also have lots of fun toys like quads, we have dirt bikes, we have trucks, we have trailers. So also making sure you're practicing play, clean, go by cleaning off all of this equipment, so you're not taking seeds from one area to the next. And like I mentioned before, check your hay. So don't just throw your horse in hay. Make sure you're looking through it, that you've got good quality hay, hay that's free of any random little plant bits. If you find something in your hay that you're not sure what it is, get it identified so you know that you're safe. So these are just simple things that we can do to make sure that we're keeping our livestock safe, and we're also preventing the spread of invasive species. Now, before I finish, I just wanted to share a photo of my mare. So this is Taffy, and she is a 17-year-old registered American paint horse. She is very lucky to be boarded at my friend's house. There's over 100 acres, so we have lots of fields to check, but it's a beautiful spot, and we definitely check our fields. When we're riding all the time, I'm constantly pointing out invasive species that I have to report, and being mindful of practicing play, clean, go. So I just want to thank everyone for tuning in today for Take Action Tuesday. If you'd like more information on how to prevent invasive species, make sure you check out our website at bcinvasives.ca. You can also follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. We always have little fun tidbits and great information up there. We also share information about upcoming events. And we also have a volunteer program. So if you are between the ages of 15 to 30 and you'd like to make a difference in your community and help protect BC's biodiversity, you can sign up. We'd love to have you. So again, you can just visit our website, to find out more information, and enjoy the rest of your week. And thanks for joining us.